Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about Royal Caribbean's Allure of the Seas. This is an Oasis class ship, so it's one of the bigger ones. We've been on it twice, so we went on it back in 2015 and then again 8 years later in 2023. So we're going to take you through the different things on the ship, our experiences, and also some of the good and some of the bad bits. So today I'm going to run through a number of different things. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to join the experiences of both the 2015 and the 2023 one together. I'll point out any of the differences between the two different times, but I just think it makes sense to include as much content as I can in this video. So we're going to start with the ship, then the cabin, then the food and drinks, then the entertainment, and then, as I said, we're going to go on to the good and bad. So in terms of ship, this is an Oasis class ship, which means it's one of the bigger ones in Royal Caribbean's fleet. It's also one of the older ones, so this was launched in 2010. It's 225,000 tons, so it's a pretty big ship. It can take 5,400 passengers, and it's no longer one of the biggest ships. The Icon class has taken over, but in terms of the overall size of Royal Caribbean's fleet, it's still a pretty big ship. So in terms of rooms on the ship, you've got your standard interior rooms, you've got your external facing portholes, you've got balcony rooms. There are multiple different choices of balcony room. So you've got your standard ocean viewing balconies, but you've also got your interior facing balconies, which overlook the Central Park, the neighbourhood, which is the boardwalk at the very back, and then even further at the very back, you've got the Aqua Theatre. So you can choose interior facing rooms. They're good, I guess, if you don't like the view of the ocean, if you get a bit seasick. It's also the Central Park space particularly. We picked on both cruises that we've been on, both in 2015 and in 2023, and it's a very quiet space. There's not much going on in Central Park. You've got some restaurants in there, you've also got a Central Park cafe, and you've got the Trellis bar as well, but there's no loud music. You have some musicians playing some evenings and some afternoons, but really it's quite a quiet space. I would recommend that as a balcony room if you weren't wanting to go for an ocean viewing room. As you can imagine, on a ship of this size, you've got multiple different types of entertainment and bars. We particularly like Boleros because it has live music, and it's on the main Royal Promenade, so it's actually quite easy to get to. It's quite centrally located, and it's good, I think, if you're starting your evening off before you go out for dinner. You've also got the champagne bar, which I believe they're getting rid of as part of the amplification process, but it's a nice space. It has quite a lot of nice comfortable seating in it, and as you can imagine, it's got a multitude of champagne options, but you can also just get standard cocktails in there. We were normally having martinis in that space, and it's a really nice space to meet as well. It does have very soft music in it, so if you want something a bit more lively, you'd head opposite to the Boleros bar where you've got a bit more going on. And then you've got your Rising Tide bar, which is the bar that goes up and down between the Royal Promenade and Central Park, and that's a really cool bar to sit on. I think it takes about 20 minutes to go between the floors, so you need to factor that in if you are wanting to just go on it and have a very quick drink. They do a bar service when the bar starts moving normally. It also sits down in the Royal Promenade for quite a long period of time, so it's quite a cool little space. We also liked the Trellis bar, which is the one kind of outside, but it's in the Central Park area. It's great. It's also really good for photos, so if you are planning on having any photos taken, I would recommend doing it there. You don't tend to have an awful lot of people who are bothering you in that space, or kind of coming into the photos. You have the way that the walkway goes, it kind of curves around the park, so you have two walkways. There's one area where you've got like a little pagoda, I think it's called, and so you can have photos taken there. I've put a photo in here, you can see what it looks like, but that's a really nice space. The only thing is, obviously, if you're open to the elements, if it starts raining, or if the weather's not particularly great, you won't want to be out there for very long, but it's a cool space to go to. Then you've got Dazzles, which is the live entertainment space. I think that takes up decks 7 and 8, and it's overlooking the boardwalk. That's a really cool bar. We spent quite a lot of time there. There's a really good band playing. They kind of alternate the music. Sometimes it's like big band style, sometimes it's like symphony music, other times it's like 50s and 60s. They do like a 70s night there as well, and they have like a best of kind of evening as well. So on both times we were cruising, it was a 7-night cruise. There's a multiple choices of music that they play in Dazzles, but it's a really cool space, and there's a little dance floor if you fancy a boogie. Vintages, which is not a bar that we spent much time in. It's very, very quiet in there. It's kind of lots of dark wood. It's very subdued. If you like your wines, I think you would probably love going to Vintages. It's just one of those spaces that's normally a little bit quieter than the other bars that you go to, and like I said, we didn't spend much time there. You've got the British pub, which is on the Royal Promenade. They have, the standard kind of design of a British pub. You've got also normally a couple of musicians that play in there. They've got like a guitarist and a singer, and in the evening it's quite fun to go in that space. It's quite lively after, I'd say, kind of 9-10 o'clock at night, and it's also conveniently close to the pizza station, which is Sorrento's on the Royal Promenade. So if you fancy any food in the evening, you can normally stop by that space quickly after you've gone to the pub. So, food options. You're kind of spoiled for choice again on this ship. You've got lots of options. There are also quite a lot of paid for options, so just keep that in mind if you're not used to Royal Caribbean, because whilst there are a lot of options, most of them are paid for. But there are some free ones as well. So you've got the main dining room, which occupies quite a large space on the ship, and I'm personally a fan of the main dining room. I think the service is better than some of the paid for options. If you watch my review of Freedom of the Seas, that was the ship that we just did last November 2024, you'll see that the main dining room service was really good. We had 2 really great attendants helping us and serving us, and it was really good service, and it's very polished in there. Whereas in Chops Grill, we find that actually it's not quite as good, and you're paying extra for that space, so you're expecting an elevated experience, which unfortunately on quite a lot of our cruises we've not found in Chops Grill. But you have your Chops Grill, which is your steak restaurant. You've got 150 Central Park, which is personally my favourite paid for dining option on board the ship, and it sits inside the Central Park. They've got a lot of really unique dishes in here, things like venison, lamb Wellington, lots of fish dishes, things like scallops, lobster, all really good. You can pay for a dining package before you get on the ship. I would recommend booking that space. Now, if you can't book it before the cruise, if you buy, say, like a 5-night dining package, I'd recommend that you go straight to that restaurant when you get on board to book that restaurant, because it gets booked up really quickly and there's quite a lot of limited seating in it. You've got Johnny Rockets, which I believe is free, but I believe you can pay extra for things like milkshakes in there. We have done that a couple of times. It's in the boardwalk at the back of the ship. It's got great views and it's quite a nice little space. You've got the Sabortacaria, I think it's called, which is the Mexican inspired restaurant. I think they're getting rid of that now after Amplification, and they're replacing it with Playmakers, which again, if you've watched any of my other reviews, is a really cool space. I don't think that's covered on the dining package. I think it's a la carte, but it's good food and it doesn't cost a lot of money, and the beer is included if you have the deluxe drinks package. So I'd recommend, even if you didn't want food, just to go in there, try some of their beers. They're really, really nice. Windjammer, the buffet space is always really good. The food that Royal Caribbean throws in there is I think great. You've got lots of stations, lots of variety. I think the food's pretty good quality as well, and they do a good job of rotating people around the space, so it doesn't feel like it's always too busy. I mean, there are moments where it is busy when you first get on board the ship, and on disembarkation day, I would probably recommend you avoiding that space because it can be a bit of a madhouse. But otherwise, it's a really nice space. If you don't want to get dressed up for dinner in the main dining room, it's a good alternative, and it's open quite a lot of the day as well. I think the only time it's not open, I think, is kind of between about 2 and 5 p.m. every day. After that, I think it's open most of the time. Unfortunately, there's no midnight buffet now. There used to be one years ago, but it closes relatively early. So if you want food in the evening, you need to go down to Sorrento's, which is in the Royal Promenade, or you've got there's a cafe also on the Royal Promenade that does sandwiches, croissants, light bites like that. So the ship is undergoing a major refit this year, so it's called Amplification. That's what Royal Caribbean call their refit program, and I think it's worth mentioning it here. So this ship hasn't been renovated yet due to the fact that COVID hit, so they were about to do it, but then they stopped the whole program, and they've obviously been waiting since time's been moving on and the cruise ship industry has been recovering. But the refit is happening in 2025, and we're going on it in October of this year, so it'll be interesting to see what it looks like. But some of the notable things that they're adding to it, I think, are the water slides. I think it's called Perfect Storm, which this ship has, been notably absent of having. And we've tried them on other ships. We've tried them on Freedom. We've tried them on the Harmony, and they are great fun, particularly as this ship is destined for warmer weather most of the time. I think it's nice to have that on there. We've also got the Playmakers, which we talked about before. And then they're adding things like the Pesky Parrot, which I've not tried yet, but I believe is on Icon of the Seas, and I believe that's overtaking the Champagne Bar. I don't think they're installing the Bionic Bar on this ship, which I personally think is a good thing. I think really they should be scrapping the Bionic Bar. And then they're just updating a lot of the ship, making it fresher. I think they're changing the colours everywhere, making it more like the newer ships, making it a bit more fun. I think they're revamping the pool area as well. If you've been on a newer ship, you'll see that they've got things like these kind of like leaves that are around the pool deck. They've kind of added more colour to it. So you've got like a lime and coconut bar, which they will be installing, which is like a fun kind of Caribbean themed bar, and they add a lot of the theme around the pool deck. So I'm excited about the renovation program, and if you are on it and you're going on it and you're going before I do, please do leave a comment, because I'm interested to see what you think of it and whether you think it's worth all of the money that Royal Caribbean are throwing into it. And now to the things that are good and the things that are not so good. So in terms of the things that are good on this ship, there are a number of things. I mean, I have to give Royal Caribbean their credit. I think that when you're moving 5,500 people, you would imagine that it would get kind of quite crazy. And actually, I think they've got a very good program to keep everything moving. So from embarkation, both times we'd done it, one was in Texas, one was in Barcelona. I never felt that there was any particular point where there were too many people funneled into a certain area. They have a very organised process to move people around, which I think is great. And I think that's something that should be applauded, because we've been on other cruise lines and we felt that actually they've not handled it quite as smoothly. So that's something I'd say for them, which I think is a good thing. And then also I'd say that the variety of food on board is also cool. I think there's a lot more variety on this ship than there is on some of the other ones like Freedom, but then the ship's a lot bigger as well. There are places that I think they should probably replace. I personally think 150 Central Park is probably my favourite restaurant on board this ship. I'm not so wild about Giovanni's, just because I think, it's pizza pasta. You can't really make it any more exciting than that. I mean, I'm sure that there are people out there that disagree, but I think that there are lots of spaces on the ship where you've got opportunities to add more restaurants. I think it's a great idea that adding the Playmakers on board as well. I'm excited to try that on this one as well. And there are, lots of free options. I think, the Windjammer Cafe, Windjammer Buffet is a really good space, and I've always enjoyed their food. I think it's not the best food, it's not as good as Celebrity or some of the other lines, but I think they do a pretty good job considering that it's included in your fare. And then to the not so good. So I think that this ship is great. I'm excited to see what the amplification program is going to bring. I think it's going to have an interesting effect on the overall ship. I think that it actually will make the ship more popular, which might then also drive up prices for it as well. But we've booked to go on the amplified version of it for the transatlantic crossing from Barcelona, and it's not that much money. So I actually think that it's going to be interesting to see what it's like. But anyway, in terms of the negative aspect of it, I think that Royal Caribbean have missed a bit of an opportunity. So in terms of the amplification, they're not actually going to be renovating any of the rooms. Now, Celebrity, which we've been on, they have a slightly different renovation program, and on theirs, for the ships that have been, I think, revolutionized is their program, they actually redo all the rooms or the cabins as well, whereas on Royal Caribbean they don't do that. So the ship we'd just been on, Freedom, that had been amplified, but the rooms were still exactly the same as they were before, except for the fact that they built some new rooms. We stayed in one of the rooms they built out of a space that was actually a public area before. But I think it's a shame that the rooms have all of the old decor in them. I appreciate it costs more more money for Royal Caribbean, but I think it adds new life to a ship that is looking a little bit tired. And the 2 times we've been on Allure, things like the sofas look a bit tired, you know, they look a bit worn. I think they could just, I think that would be, I think it's a missed opportunity for Royal. But otherwise, I think the ship's great. I think, you know, I'm excited to try it, you know, 3rd time for me. And it'll be interesting to be able to have a look around at all of the new things they've added. So, yeah. Thank you for watching, as always. Please do leave me a comment, and if you would be interested in liking and subscribing, I would be very grateful. Thank you.